Just a quick report on the Dubai investment mission. There's a team which went to Dubai, and let me just explain the team because some persons may have some objections to some of the names on the teams. Mr. John Ryan as chairman of MDC, Mr. Ivan Brown as CEO of MDC. Why MDC? Because MDC is the one that's leading on the Little Bay development, including port development, critically important to them. The Honorable Financial Secretary, John Skerritt, yes, we know that he's on his way out, but at least he has been part of the mission before, and therefore he needed to come in just to solidify. His son, young Skerritt, who is the acting director of Public Works, came in as the person who has been leading on the port development project, working with the consultants, also as director of Public Works, acting, to be in a position to provide that kind of technical support to the mission. One further clarification is that both Mr. Ryan and Mr. Brown had their wives accompanying them. They met the cost of their spouses accompanying them to Dubai. So I just wanted to make that absolutely clear and get it out of the way. We had meetings with three groups of persons. One, dealing with the port development, where we're looking at a public-private partnership. We met with the principals of Dubai Ports. Dubai Port has a labor force of 28,000 persons worldwide. Dubai Port in Dubai occupies an area of 44 square kilometers. And their port project, when it started, just like Casby Port Development, was being questioned by persons as to whether or not that investment made sense. Today, Dubai Ports and its surrounding investments accounts for in excess of 25% of the GDP of Dubai. Having met with the vice president of Dubai Ports, they were pretty much satisfied with the approach which we were taking. But having looked at their own operations, we figured we need to look at our own port development in a much more larger context. It must not be seen just as a cruise ship and cargo handling facility. We've been encouraged to look at a free zone concept, including a transshipment type operation in Montserrat. Again, why transshipment? Because we're sitting in the middle of the Caribbean Sea Arc. Dubai Ports is also very heavily invested in transshipment business. We have been asked to provide additional information, additional financial information in terms of container movements, the container traffic within the region, et cetera, so that they can come back to us with a firm decision. We're hoping to be in a position to provide all of that additional information within the next 30 days. The concept which we're also looking at is that given the offer of DFID to spend £23 million on the breakwater to protect the little jetty which we had, and the refusal by government of Montserrat to accept that investment, the deal which we're trying to work with DFID is to retain those funds so that we can put it in as part of the larger developments with the understanding that the remainder of the funds would be sourced through public-private partnership. Dubai Ports sees that investment as being critically important for any decisions which they're likely to make. After the 30-day period, then what? We're hoping then to have electronic communication and then possibly a follow-up visit, maybe as early as July, possibly as late as August, to try to concretize that. The other investor which we spoke with is a construction company, principally a construction and engineering company. We're looking at the phase one build-out of Little Bay Town Center, the Town Center first block of buildings, which I think John can speak a little more on. We had the concept of partnering with them so that they're doing a 50% split. they're saying they are willing to fund the entire development of that first phase, the entire development. And the local funds will then be able to finance other developments within the town center. So at least we should, by the end of this year, hopefully, be in a position to start construction on that particular facility. The engineering stroke project manager for the company has already scheduled a visit to Montserrat for August. Why August? Because that's the time which he'll have to come and do that. Within that time frame, we'll be able to work out the economics, the numbers, and the draft legal agreement between MDC and that company so that we can at least start that project on proper grounds. We would expect again, in this case, that there will be a signing agreement between the MDC and the company, time frame sometime in August, to be able to move things forward. And so we're expecting that MDC will in fact have to return to Dubai for the signing of those agreements. The question will be, well, why not have them come to Montserrat and sign? They do have their infrastructure issues up there in terms of pooling their people together. So rather than bringing out a big team, it's easier for us to take a smaller team to go to Dubai and finish off that project. The third element is one in relation to training of our young professionals. One of the largest construction companies in the United Arab Emirates, based in Abu Dhabi, we had a discussion with their chairman. He has indicated to us that he is willing to take for internship training up to 6 of our young professionals at a time. That's young engineers, young architects, young clerk of works, that type of expertise, where they will then be able to put them through the ropes in terms of how you operate within a professional organization. Clearly, they're operating at a scale much larger than we do, but at least it gives them that kind of professional work experience and work ethic, which they will bring back to Montserrat in terms of how we can utilize them moving forward. So those are the 3 principal areas which I'd like to report on.
The area we're presently preparing. Block number 1, that's the building that the Honorable Premier spoke to. It's about 33 units on 3 levels. It is that unit that Gulf Classic, the company that we're talking to, will be happy to finance. We are hoping, like the Premier said, that we could have had a joint financing with them for one obvious reason, that we would have had Montserratians also involved at the local level, institutions, the Bank of Montserrat, the Building Society, the Social Security, and indeed an investment fund, be it private or public. However, the investor wanted to have a standalone project for his company rather than an involvement with at this point in time with the local company. That project, we have already got all of the working drawings from architects that were employed on those. Those drawings are now with us, so we can provide them with information so they can do their quantities, and then we continue to firm up a relationship with them, a firm relationship with them as we go forward. That is very hopeful sign for us, because if we can get the first building within the new town, the area that we are now compacting, the area that we had surveyed and we have taken out all the slush from Piper's Pond and put it behind, and we are now compacting based on engineer's report, that's the area we're talking where for the first block of the new town. And it seems that a financier is on the horizon. Perhaps on the port, Premier, I should mention the other aspect of, you mentioned cruise and you mentioned transshipment. With the port development, or when it gets in stream, it will then drive all that's going to happen for the MDC and the whole Little Bay town development. You recall we have the hotel site for developing. We have the condos on Potato Hill for the condos on Bonito Hill for development, and residences around the edge of Potato Hill. So that critical to all of this is the port development, and of course, let me not forget the yacht basin in front of the town. So those are the other centers that are critical for us to develop, but we need to have a port to make it happen.
Honorable Premier, you stated there in your introduction, you say that you're trying to reach a deal with the DFID to retain that 23 million to contribute to any possible investment by Dubai Ports. You also stated Dubai Ports sees this as being important to any forward movement on the project. If DFID is not amicable towards this, how would this affect the actual investment going forward?
Well, part of it is that I do not wish to get into a question as to whether or not the discussions which we're having with DFID will not come to fruition. I think very positively in terms of any commitments which are being given by the minister, and as such, there is a meeting to be held between myself and the minister in mid-June in London, where we will continue the discussions and negotiations on that point.
Just another question for the Premier. Something else he mentioned also in his introduction regarding the suggestion by Dubai Ports in terms of the free area. I don't want to misquote it, but something about a free area in terms of the port development. But would that impact the current design, Honorable Premier, or that's already integrated into the design for the port facilities?
No, the free zone area of the design is a concept which is not necessarily within the port environs itself. It is simply an additional business opportunity using the port as a basic infrastructure to trigger that. We're part of the OECS single market and economy. And as a consequence of being part of that OECS free market, single market and economy, it means that any Caribbean or OECS national wishing to live and work in Montserrat can do so. The development of the port itself, in terms of the professional advice, we have been using other professionals from within the region to double check everything that has been done by the consultants. So in fact, we're still retaining their support and retaining their confidence.
In terms of that specific area, and Mr. Premier, you first, and then maybe Mr. Ryan, or you can switch it if you like. This is specific to just the Pipers Pond area. Will these investments be spread anywhere else in the whole Little Bay Town development?
Well, the Little Bay Town, as you would have seen if you probably would have looked at the development plans, it's several blocks within the Pipers Pond area, and if you go seawards, where we then have to reclaim lands, there's a seawall beyond the shore for about 20 to 30 feet out, where we will reclaim lands, and some of those blocks will be alongside that seawall, and they'll go right up to Nosca along there. So it is that along Nosca up to the Pipers Pond's edge, and you go linearly up through that area of Pipers Pond. And the town, of course, will continue to spread as there's need further up beyond the market. But that is the area earmarked for the town, yes.
We have to also look at where we are in the development phase in Montserrat. We are in the north of Montserrat, which is hilly. Government does not own land in Montserrat other than the Little Bay area. Government headquarters is already at Braids. We have Bank of Montserrat further up. We have Lee's Pharmacy and so forth, and Royal Bank coming along that stretch. What in effect we're doing within Little Bay is what may be considered a business district as part of the town. It is not the capital itself, it's part of the capital. The types of businesses within there would be soft industry. So you're looking at office space, commercial space of that nature. You're not looking at a manufacturing town. The manufacturing will take place outside. So in terms of the port development itself, you have to also look at the area around the port for development. Along the foreshore as it relates to the yacht marina, and you can look at the photographs at the MDC offices, where you're looking at creating a facility which will be uplifting to Montserrat. What do we do with those facilities? Clearly, we have to be looking at, as we develop our cruising industry, to be in a position to have the duty-free items and so forth within that area, office buildings also within that area, and office complexes. So you're looking at a combination. On the third floor of most of these buildings would be accommodation. So you're having villa-type accommodation right within your town, but on your third floor. So it's a comprehensive development, and we're simply saying we expect that the local business community, be it through Bank of Montserrat Social Security Fund or the private investors, Montserratians within the diaspora, will then have an opportunity, either individually or collectively, to be part of that process.
Part of building of our town. Yes, I can very well understand that we will be involved in the building of our town. But when I think the Premier reports that the people you're talking to who are willing to fund the building of the town.
Of a block. One block we're speaking to at the moment.
So what else is going to be there?
Oh, there's several blocks, Bennette. You would have seen that, the plans, I'm sure. There's 7, 8, 10 blocks within the town. This is just block one.
That's just block one.
Just block one.
As the Premier has said, will be the some sort of the financial center that we're starting with, basically, the first phase. Is that what it's going to be?
I'm not sure that's...
No,
he said something about the
I'm not
financial.
sure that I spoke to a financial center. What you're looking at is a business district.
Business district, yes.
And let's look at not that block, but let's look at Little Bay itself, the entire Little Bay being part of your business district. Because within Little Bay, we already have the museum, which is government-owned, the Vic, which is government-owned, Social Security, already, which is local. You have the courthouses, the legislative department, will also be built along the government row. So that is also part and parcel of your development. You already have
the sports area.
The sports area, the cricket field, the market. So you're not looking at a town which will be owned by foreign investors. But we at least need to start the process, and there's a foreign investor who is saying, I am willing to put up that first block of buildings. And we are also looking at the investment fund, along with some of your private investors, including Bank of Montserrat and possibly Social Security, who are saying we will possibly be looking at building the second block.
In May last year, there was quite a bit of mention coming out of the MDC that informed a DFID update on what was happening, that we had these interests. What has happened to those?
Well, as a reality, Bennette, you must know that, interests are there, but they have to be developed. We continue to have interests. We have letters of intent from a firm in Trinidad and Tobago. We have other letters of intent coming in, but this is a work in progress. The conversation continues. I mean, it's not something that can happen overnight. Let's face it, the entire development through there, we are speaking of upwards of $300 million, perhaps, including the port at 150, and so that it's not a simple. It's a very ambitious project, and don't expect it will happen overnight. It just can't. As a realtor, you know that. How often you get people coming to the table and they're almost ready to sign, and then they back off. So that it is an ongoing thing, and very alive. Very much alive. We've had some interest in recent times again from the Chinese, who are saying to us, there's a conference going on in Shanghai sometime later this year. Do you have an interest? We can organize for you several forums for you to go in and to speak to people, and people who have an interest in all the aspects of the development at Port Little Bay and the Little Bay area. So that it's ongoing, and I expect it will be for a while.
The larger a project, the more paper is generated around the project. There is a very clear indication, very, very clear indication from the investor that I am making that investment in the facility. So it's not that we are thinking of making the investment. They're saying, for the money which you're talking about, let's shake hands on it now. but we still have to work on the legal agreements, because you have to deal with the land issue and the management issues. The fact that he's sending his chief project officer, chief engineer, to Montserrat in August is one way they would like to now examine how you're doing the pilings within there, because, and I think one of the things that we need to understand is that although the land is being built up, you still need, the buildings will be on piles. And that is the basis of the foundation. So they want to be part of that process. They want to be part of the engineering to make sure that everything is going on stream. They want to be able to come and have discussions with possible contractors for putting the structure up. And they're giving a commitment that once we can get the site prepared on time, that they would like to break ground by December of this year, December of 2014. That's the level of commitment that has been given.
Now, I note you said you didn't want to speak to anything regarding the DFID's involvement in the funding.
No, I'm not saying I don't want to speak to it. The point I'm making is that don't question whether or not DFID will actually provide the money. It's an ongoing discussion and dialogue between myself and the minister with responsibility for DFID. Some people will say you're doing deals behind closed doors. Yes, we do deals behind closed doors, because that is the way government works. The minister has indicated to me there are private discussions between yourself as Reuben Meade, the Premier of Montserrat, myself as Minister of DFID, and we would like you to keep those discussions confidential until we are in a position to disclose to the public where we are. And it is one of the reasons why I am going up to London in June to have closed-door discussions with the minister on a one-on-one basis without necessarily the rest of the DFID support team there. The confidence is there between DFID and ourselves, where they are also in June having final discussions on geothermal financing and development, where we're now looking at the development through to turning the switch on geothermal. But that is a matter which we will discuss after my return in June. Okay, so that is the way business is done. Some people would expect, okay, you went to Dubai, we expect you to come back with a deal signed and sealed on the port. It just does not happen that way. The bigger the project, the more closely people look at numbers. They look at the economics, they look at their own exposure, and they look at whether or not is this an investment which we're likely to make. The fact that they're saying, send us more information, we're excited sufficiently with the project, and we want you to come back and have further discussions with us once you've had those numbers. And that is where we are at this particular stage. The funds which were allocated for the Little Bay breakwater to protect the little jetty which we have is £23 million, which by rough conversion works out to about $30 million US. By rough conversion.
So the 30 million is US dollars. Okay. Yeah, I was beginning to be a little confused with 30 million EC dollars. That's 10 million.
You're looking at roughly 100 million EC dollars.
Okay. So what I was thinking, one of the problems that we had was with the British government saying, or DFID saying, we are not finding these private partners, and so therefore they were, so to speak, backing away from whatever they had committed to. Now that we are finding people who are willing to assist in the port building, the marina was one of the issues, and I noticed we're still mentioning the marina. Is that something that we're still looking at? Where are we? Did we have anybody who was supporting us on that?
Let us look at it in this context. We're looking at a port development which includes a marina, cruise ship berthing, and cargo handling facilities. So it's not a piece of this or a piece of that. It's a comprehensive project. Without the marina development, you will constrain the returns to both government and the investor. Because the marina traffic, and we can recognize it over the past few months, that you're seeing a lot more of your yachts calling into Montserrat. We're likely to have greater numbers and a different category of yachts, provided we have a marina where they can have safe harbor. Recognizing, of course, it is not a breakwater which will protect those ships in the event of a hurricane. The ships will leave harbor in the event of a hurricane. The breakwater is to protect your onshore investments and also to keep the water calm during regular conditions, including your North Seas that keep topping over the current jetty. Those will be protected, but definitely not hurricane conditions. It's either a brave or crazy person who will turn down $100 million. As I've indicated to the minister, you are wasting taxpayers' money if you're going to spend 100 million EC dollars to protect that little jetty which we have there. You cannot pull a cruise ship alongside. You can't bring a fully laden ship alongside. So what are you spending $100 million for? If that is all the money is available for, I, Reuben Meade, as the Premier of Montserrat, will make the decision to refuse it. And as I indicated to him, I thought you insulted the people of Montserrat by going that route. He has come to the understanding through our private discussions that he may have been misadvised. And therefore, let us continue the discussion and the dialogue. One may say you're taking a gamble. And yes, I'm taking a gamble. That, in fact, the challenge has been thrown out. Go out there and find a private partner who will be willing to partner with us in this development. Hence the reason for going to Dubai, speaking with Dubai Ports. It's the largest man-made port in the world. And in terms of traffic, you're looking at, 156,000 containers per day being handled by a single port. So you're not dealing with a set of jokers. They are currently building a fourth facility to handle 10 million containers per year, where they're building an island. So you're looking at a firm that has the expertise. A single crane, one of the gantry cranes, is running at 10 million US dollars. So you're looking at an agency that is saying, for $100 million, you're really not looking at a lot of money. That's 10 gantry cranes. So let us take a look at it. Now, will it be a fully commercial decision? The answer is no. We're saying to them, if we put 30 million US dollars in, we're asking you to possibly fund 70 million US dollars thereabouts. And the consideration is, perhaps we only need to get a rate of return on 50 million US dollars, because we may consider putting in $20 million as grant funding to help a country like Montserrat that has gone through the devastations. Now, clearly that would have required a lot of negotiations and discussions and the development of confidence in terms of what we're selling. And it is on that confidence that we're saying we are going to continue the dialogue. As I promised the minister, Minister Duncan, whatever we're doing in relation to the port, we will not necessarily come to you for your approbation or for your approval. We are partners in the development of Montserrat, and therefore I will keep you informed fully in terms of what discussions we're having and any likely contracts we're likely to sign. Hence the meeting in June in London to take those discussions forward. And of course, he's also a politician. He has elections coming up as well. So we also have to look at his timeline and our timeline in terms of moving these things forward. Yeah. We some time ago made a decision to accept an airport or airstrip facility which does not assist us in our development. We may have made that decision then for whatever reason. It, in my view and in the view of most of us sitting around this table, a mistake. And I'm simply saying to the British government, let us not make that mistake in a port development. You can only build that port once. You can't build half a port. And our little bit town center development also requires the port to provide the protection to what is now known as the Piper's Pond area. So it's a combination of factors that must be brought to the table so that we can have a development which will be futuristic and for young people to be part of. When we came into office, there was a port development for Little Bay. We had a charrette back in 2011, where we brought technical experts from around the world to participate. The marine engineer said very simply, if you build that facility there, you destroy the beach in Little Bay. So how are you going to build a hotel on a beach that you're destroying by putting a port there? Because you then end up from sand to something like a silty type arrangement. Take the hotel from off the hill, put it on the flat. Build villas on the hill. Having listened to the wisdom of those experts, including persons from Montserrat who sat on the panels, government of Montserrat in its wisdom or otherwise decided, let us go for what makes more sense for Montserrat. Let us stop doing a piece of this and a piece of this. Look at a comprehensive development. And it is that comprehensive development which we are basing all of these things on. And we are saying to the people, and we're saying to the British government, we will make it happen. And with your help, it will happen. And it is that kind of commitment which we are showing, and they are showing, that gives us that confidence that in fact that we're on the right path and we will deliver it. The town center development, which is being funded by Gulf Classic, plus some of the other buildings which will be funded locally, is an indication that we can attract the foreign investors and that we will in fact be able to create this kind of development that has been spoken about. So we're moving from talking about it to physically putting it in place.
It probably should be said that were we able to go the route of citizenship for some of the would-be investors, Gulf Classic and their group, the very first trip we made to Dubai, had 70-odd people that they would have syndicated and do the hotel, the residences, and the condominium. They were willing to make that commitment. In fact, they sent us a letter of intent in that area, but we could not pursue that angle given our status. So there's not that at the embassy that we're not looking. We have been looking, we continue to look for investors, and somewhat with our hands tied behind our back, because were it not for that factor that the British were not willing to support the concept of citizenship for investors of that nature, we would have had work on the ground already.
What I'm gathering is that, from your Premier, is that we are back talking with the British as to go forward. I said that in the background that when the minister pulled back from the development of the port, that, as you just described, was impacting on the building of our town, of the town. And so I saw that as pretty much killing that whole plan. But it seems you're saying to us now that you're back on stream with this $30 million that you might be able to put over there and so on, that you're back on a more positive, forward-moving talk now with the British than even before.
The position which I took as Premier, with the support of my colleagues, and I've said as much to the British government, if you're going to fund a similar error as you did with John Osborne Airport, we will go and do the development ourselves. We're going to find the investors to do it, with or without your support. But as partners, we would like you to remain as partners with us and provide the financing. While there's no guarantee of that 30 million, the minister said, go ahead and prove that you can get it done, and we will continue the discussions in relation to those funds. So it is a commitment of government of Montserrat to build something that makes sense for the people of Montserrat, rather than waiting for the British government to say this is what you're supposed to have. So it's not a pulling back. The time lag between the grant or the offer of the £23 million and the timeline with the discussion between the minister and myself was 1 week. So there was no falling out or falling back. It's simply a matter. This is a negotiating position. We'll continue to negotiate.
I'm seeking clarification on some questions that have been asked and also some allegations that have been made about access into the unsafe zone and the involvement of certain high-level officials in giving access to certain persons for removal of material
Derelict
from
vehicles.
the derelict vehicles from that. So I'm just seeking clarification as to the position.
Okay, let's back up a little. When I was Minister for Agriculture and Environment under the Dr. Lewis administration, and later on became the Development Minister, we went on a drive to rid the island of as many of the derelict vehicles as possible. We decided, in terms of a cost-saving exercise, is to store them in the vicinity of public works on the site which was allocated for the abattoir. We then sought to have companies show an interest in scavenging those vehicles for export. A company came, agreed to take the vehicles. As a matter of fact, several companies came and agreed to take those vehicles. They were not in a position to finalize their overseas sales, by which time funding had been approved for the abattoir since we took over the office. So we decided, let us move all of these equipment into Plymouth with the hope that you can export from the Plymouth Pier and they can use the facility in there for cutting the vehicles. So yes, there was an agreement signed by me as Premier with the full support of Cabinet, supported by an SRNO, which has been tabled in the Legislative Assembly, to provide for such services. Additionally, there are buildings in Plymouth, lots of scrap metal in Plymouth, and the question is, can we also have some of that scrap metal? And the understanding is yes, as long as it's on government property, you have the authority to do it. However, if you wish to go on private property or property owned by MUL or any other such agencies, you must first have their concurrence. So cut your own deal and your own arrangements with them. But on government property, you can take up all the scrap metal. In terms of accessing Plymouth, the accessing of Plymouth is handled in a very simple manner. The DMCA has been authorized subject to the satisfaction of the safety criteria, where they must submit a safety plan. Once that has been satisfied, they can then, with the advice of the Volcano Observatory, in that things are quiet, go in. In order to facilitate the movement into the inner gate, because you only have single operators operating on the inner gate, then those who are operating in there, the standard practice is that they would be provided with the key from the Salem police station, and at their return, they will submit it back to the police station. It's the same thing that happens with the sand miners. If a sand barge is going out, the operator gets the key for the inner gate. The same thing with the people with the derelict vehicles. And therefore, are we saying that we would much prefer to see that you have an old shirt that can't fit you anymore, and you prefer to leave it in your closet and throw it on the garbage heap, rather than to give it to somebody for them to use? The persons who are involved in the derelict vehicles, they have to pay their workers. They have to import the materials for cutting up the vehicles. And therefore, they're creating employment. And when they export the products, they're bringing foreign exchange into Montserrat. And therefore, it is something supported by government of Montserrat, supported by Cabinet, and we have no apologies to make to anybody. Now, if in fact that you have private property where goods are taken from, that is a matter for the police. The Cabinet decision also speaks to customs and police, border control grouping, to be able to search containers and also get a certificate to show that you have permission to take the goods which you're exporting. So that is the comprehensive manner in which the matter is being addressed. And I hope that I have satisfied those who may have had concerns.